Hey everyone, I'm Dave Hathaway. Super honored today to get to speak to you guys about intentional wealth. And when I was asked to speak today, I knew that I was going to be in a room full of accredited investors and business owners, which is a very tall order, as I know most people are pretty financially savvy. But the stuff that I'm going to share today about intentional wealth can be utilized both if you're really advanced on your wealth journey or if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of money. So if you're in either one of those camps, no worries. Hopefully what I share today can help you immensely. So the things that I'm going to share today are basically being proactive over reactive for your wealth. So I'm going to share the systems that I use to track my spending, my wealth, and then I'm also going to share how I'm able to bring my vision to fruition by doing this and how you can do the same. And so the first slide up here that just has my name, it's got a picture of Yellowstone National Park, and it's a picture of the gray wolves. And I thought this was a cool analogy to start out with. They said that when they reintroduced the wolves to Yellowstone National Park, they changed the structure, the size of the rivers. And if you don't know the story about Yellowstone National, the wolves were killed off by humans and so basically gone extinct in Yellowstone National Park. And they didn't totally realize, but a lot of the environment was changing for the worst because of it. Deer and elk were overgrazing the forests, and so the rivers were shrinking, erosion was happening, and everything was out of balance. So they reintroduced the gray wolves in 1995, I think. And what ended up happening is it made a massive impact that they didn't realize, where it ended up reducing the elk and the deer population, but it ended up allowing the aspen trees and I want to say the willow trees to grow back that hadn't been growing because the deers and the elk had been eating them. And it also changed the structure of the rivers because those trees were able to grow their roots, and beavers came back to the area, and foxes came back to the area, and birds came back to the area. And so it changed the whole structure just with this little change. So that's hopefully what I'm going to share is we can have a little change with being intentional with our wealth, and it can make massive positive impacts for the better. So this first slide, allow myself to introduce myself, and hopefully if you get anything out of this thing, or if you don't get anything, at least you get some laughs. So there's my friend Austin Powers, but I'm Dave Hathaway. Grew up in Northern Virginia. It's where I was, raised, where I went to college. I went to George Mason University, and I still live in Fairfax. So product of Northern Virginia. And there's my beautiful wife in the middle with myself. And got married 9 years ago, and that has been a great influence in my financial journey. And then you can see my two kids, my oldest Alex and my youngest son, or our youngest son Benjamin, there. So why the heck am I here speaking to you guys? What's going on with my journey? Why do I even have the qualifications to come up and speak to this group? I just wanted to share this because it's important. Purchased my first property when I was a senior in college back in February 2008. Seemed like the best time to purchase a property. As we know, in October 2008, that was a financial crash, the housing crash. Housing prices went down. So the worst possible time. But through that journey, that was my first house. Then I just kept purchasing a house or two every year. And I built up to a 54 unit portfolio, which is currently run by a virtual assistant in the Philippines. She does all of our property management. So I have some systems built out there, and really got into safe, affordable, quality housing. That's kind of our tagline. And along the way, did flips in DC, did short-term rentals, did a real estate syndication where I was the operator or GP, and all of our investors over a period of 4 years earned 17% IRR. Super proud of that. But then as my wealth journey continued, decided to get into passive investing. Got introduced to Josh McCallan over at Accountable Equity, luckily by Chad, who said, hey, you got to meet these guys. They are doing next level stuff. Went over to Ken Island, which is a beautiful wedding venue right on the water. And so our first investment was down there at the bottom, Renault, because my wife loves wine and I wanted to include her investing to really get her interested, but also invested in parking lots you can see up there to left, mobile homes, hotels, multifamily. So I'm invested with multiple real estate syndications, over $1 million in just different syndications. So still have a portfolio, passively investing. So that is my financial journey. That's where I am today. And that's why I get to speak to you guys today. The goals of this presentation, this chat, are to share my process again, which is simplistic, which is proactive, which is mindful, and which is sustainable. And with this process, you should be able to grow your wealth, grow your giving, grow your time, and grow your opportunity. And who all doesn't want to grow their wealth, their giving, their time, and their opportunities? And everybody should have their hand up because it's a great thing when you can do that. Then we're going to discuss common issues that get in our way of being intentional with our wealth. We're going to do a little bit of groupthink, and then I'm going to provide you with some tools at the end that you can utilize that are free. And so the quote up here, and if you like Stoicism, then you're going to love the presentation, and it's a one that I really like by Seneca. If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable. So we have to know where we're headed, or else we just might end up somewhere else. And so I want to talk about the common issues that plague us all. So I'm going to give you a couple stories. Luckily, these ones, my wife in not the most amazing light, but I asked her, "Hey, can I share these stories? I think they'll provide value to the group." And she said, "Absolutely." So the first one is teamwork and communication, and I have a picture over there, or I have a meme that says, "Can't go over the budget if you never make a budget." And me and my wife Kristen were in marriage coaching for 6 months. And during that marriage coaching, our coach Brian asked one day, like, is there something that annoys you guys on a daily basis? And of course, I raised my hand and I said, "Brian, I come home often and, almost every single day, there's like 5, 6 Amazon packages that I get relatively flustered over, like, oh, we don't need any more stuff." And so he asked, "Well, do you guys have like a spending budget?" I said, Yes, Brian, of course we do." And then I look over at my wife and she goes, "Yeah, well, kind of." And I was like, "Oh, what does that mean?" And I had 3 years prior, we had a conversation of having a spending budget. So I was under the impression, hey, she said, "Yeah, I'll create a spending budget." And then she goes on to say, "Well, I pay the bills and then everything that's left over, that's my spending budget." So teamwork and communication. And what I want to highlight there is just, if you don't talk about it, then you might not know you have an issue. So you might want to ask those right questions with your partner, because you can be on the same page, but they might not be on the same page. Which made me go into a further questioning a few days later. And if you see that picture down there with her, it's not my wife, but a picture of what my wife's ideal life is, and it's a lady in a grocery cart. The next question that I ended up asking Kristen and I asked, hey, if money was no option, or money didn't matter, what is retirement, what does your ideal life look like? And I think I actually even went in more clarity, and I said, "Hey, honey, if we had $30,000 a month in passive investments for my syndications, what does your life look like? What do you want to be doing?" And so I paused, and she goes, "Well, I mean, I want to work out in the mornings." I was like, "Okay." And she goes, "Then I want to make breakfast for the kids before they go to school." Say, "Okay, we can do all that. Great." And then last, she said, I'd go to the grocery store." And I'm waiting for any other things that she wants to do in retirement, and she didn't say anything. And I said, "We can do all that. We're fine. We're great right now." But the point I want to make there is just to, and then that's point number 2 of common issues, having lack of clarity on your goals and your values. So it's important to come together as a team, and there you'll have this teamwork element to talk about your goals and your values, so you guys know what you need or what you're wanting, where you're going. Again, that first quote of, if you don't know the port you're going to sail, no wind is favorable. So, and we also had this issue of having plenty, so not needing a budget. When you have all your bills and you're still saving a little bit, sometimes we're not proactive and with our money. And so you might just be spending it on stuff that you don't necessarily need or you don't want. And so sometimes that ends up being an issue, is that you have enough, so you're not being intentional with where you're spending your money or who you're giving it to. Fourth is just survival mode. As a parent with 2 kids, I get it. We got sports, we got stuff. Sometimes it's hard to sit down, talk with our partner, talk with our whole family about, hey, how do we want to spend our money? How do we want to utilize our wealth? The fifth is just not having a system, which again, I'm going to share a profit first system that I've kind of reverse engineered or tailored to personal wealth. And then the last is joint accounts and global cash flow. So how many people have joint accounts in here? Okay. And then of the people that have joint accounts, how many people know what their global cash flow is? And global cash flow is just, how much income from everything is coming in. And I ask that because it's super important to know what your global cash flow is. Because if you don't, then you don't know how much you can spend or how much you should budget or how much you should spread around. So those two things are super important. And it becomes an issue if you don't know how much is coming in for your wife, or you don't know how much all your stuff. Maybe you have a brokerage account that's separate. Maybe you have an investment account that's separate. So just it's all coming together so you guys are on the same team and knowing, how much money's coming in so you know where you can allocate it or how much you need to allocate. So moving along, and I really like this picture. It says, what if I told you that being on a budget doesn't mean you're poor? And the reason I have this slide in here is a lot of times we think of budgeting as a savings mechanism. We think of it as you budget when you're poor. And I want you to kind of flip the script on budgeting, and I want you to think of wealth budgeting. So think of you have an abundance of money and you need to budget it. So you're not just going to waste it away. You're going to actively have a vision, and you're going to disperse your money into places that you want to create positive impact. And so when we're wealth budgeting, we need to know a couple different things. Number one, we need to know our values and our goals. Number two, we need to track our spending. Number three, we need to create a budget. And number four, we need to make mindful choices. We're going to go into the system here in a second, but you need to have all of those to be really intentional, really mindful, purposeful with your wealth. And so this is where I'm going to introduce profit first. And so how many people know what profit first is? With a show of hands. Okay, there's a few people. All right, so profit first is a system, and I'm going to show you. And this is a book, and I've been using this in my business for 4 years. If you're a business owner or husband or wife to a business owner, you might realize sometimes business owners like to use what's working in their business and then overlay it on the family. So this is semi what I did. I said, man, I love profit first in my real estate investment business. I want to use that to be really intentional with our wealth moving forward. And so the profit first system, and you can see up on the TV, is grandma's next gen envelope system. And I'm going to explain in detail. But in a very overview system, if you remember when grandma or somebody in your family or maybe yourself budgeted, sometimes they used an envelope system and they put it on the refrigerator, and each envelope had a name on the front. Maybe it was vacation, maybe it was utilities, maybe it was rent. And so that was the way they were able to budget. And they just, every time they got paid, they divvied it up into different percentages in those envelopes, and that's how they did it. So Profit First is very similar, but it's a next gen system. So we're not using envelopes, we're not putting them on the fridge, we're using bank accounts. And so if you see up here, I have a sample, and I have a sample over there to the left that we'll talk about in a second. But I want you to have a visual, which is that picture on the right-hand side, and that it just shows you that you have income. Usually you have a checking account that counts for income. And you can see over there on the left, it says 100%. And so all your income you put into one checking account. So every month, all this income that's coming in, whether you're getting paid, whether it's investments, whether it's dividends, whatever it is, whether it's your business. And so that goes in a checking account. And then once a month, so I do once a month, you divvy it up into all these different buckets that you see at the bottom there. And each one of those buckets represents a different savings account. And so maybe you have a living expense savings account, and maybe you have a vacation savings account, and maybe you have a charity account, maybe you have a tax account, and maybe you have a spend account. So you can have as many accounts as you want. I like to be simplistic, so I only have 6, but you can have more. You can have 8, you can have 10, depending on your needs. Everybody's going to be a little bit different. I'm just sharing you how mine is structured, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's perfect. Everybody's journey and intentional wealth is a little bit different, but this is how mine's structured. And so one time a month, after you get all that income in, you're going to disperse it down to all the different accounts. And then you have it there. It can sit there, you can use it. Sometimes, you know, the charity account will build up and I use it all at once, or sometimes the spend account will build up, or the vacation will build up. And then when we take a little bit more expensive a vacation, it goes down. But this is also a living, breathing thing. So sometimes you might go, man, I'm actually allocating too much. And it's going to change over your life. I'm allocating too much to vacations. I don't spend that lavishly on vacations. I need to give away more. Or maybe if you're like me, you want to have more income coming in. So you're investing a high percentage. You're going to see up there that there's 40%. We actually invest 50% of all of our income goes back into investments, goes back into syndications or real estate. So then each month we get more income and that goes up. So our income goes up, our charity goes up, our vacation budget goes up, everything goes up. And that's one of my secrets that I like is if you can, putting the most possible amount to investing. And then I have Mercury, which is a great bank that I use that does all of the allocations. It does it automatically. So you can say on the first of the month, I want you to disperse 40% in this account, 20% in that account, 10% in this account. And it allows you to open up just a bunch of different savings accounts with the click of a button. So if you want 6 different savings accounts, you just go into Mercury and you just open up a new savings account, open up a new savings account. And usually I just title it what it is. If it's the investment account, I title it investments. If it's the living expenses account, I title it living expenses. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to a drill that's going to allow you to build your own intentional wealth, your own profit first system. And so the first thing I want you to write down is your top 3 things that you value. And to make it really easy for you, I have a bunch of things that you could write down up there that just give you some ideas in case this 45 seconds to write stuff down makes you anxious. Could be financial security, could be it could be your kid's college education, could be lavish travel. You want to travel abroad. What are 3 top things and this doesn't need to be perfect. This is just trying to give you a baseline, a foundation to be able to build upon and for you to kind of go back and reflect to create your intentional wealth. So just write down those 3 things: personal growth, integrity. All right, we'll move on to the next thing. If you're forced to only have 6 to 8 categories you'll spend all of your income in, what would they be? There's my friend Socrates sitting up there. And so I have the 6 categories that I utilize because I like to be ultra simplistic. So a lot of different things come out of our living expenses. And I kind of use our taxes as a flexible account. So you might have a flex account, and that's because our business pays all of our taxes. So currently, I know in the future I might not always have a business, so I do want that allocation going to taxes just so it's there. But you might have a flexible spend that maybe you can contribute to kids' college. Maybe you can put it wherever you want. Maybe this month you don't have any expenses, so you're going to put it and you're going to invest more so you have more income next month. So what are those 6 to 8 categories that you'd spend all of your income in? What would they be? So am I missing any? I'll give you another 30 seconds. Again, you can use the ones that I use. Maybe health could be one. All right, and here's the last one. So the last one is, what is a charity you believe in their mission? And for us, it was always Habitat for Humanity for me. And their vision is a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And that was something that early on, it just really resonated with me. But I want to share just a thought here real quick. I shared this presentation with a friend, and I was talking about charity for a little bit. It was almost like offensive to him. And he was like, Dave, I hate charities. And I get where he's coming from as far as a lot of times charities, the money isn't always filtering down to the mission, to the people. There's some bloated organizations. Maybe there's a bunch of different admin stuff. And maybe so 30% of the money floats down to the organization. So I can understand you not liking charity. And I don't want you to think of charity as an organization. It could just be charity as an overall charity where you're blessing somebody in need. And I shared this story with him, and it kind of like, it seemed like it unlocked something for him. And I'm just going to call him Joe. And I said, Joe, last month there was a GoFundMe page on my high school reunion page. And it's our 20th high school reunion coming up. So that I can show you my age. But I said, on that GoFundMe page, there was a guy that I knew, not like super close friends, but chatted with a few times. He was pretty funny. So I remember laughing pretty vividly with him. And he had a wife and 4 kids. And the GoFundMe page was there because he was driving on the highway, got in an accident, wasn't wearing his seatbelt, was ejected on the highway, and was killed instantly, ejected out of his car, killed instantly, pronounced dead. And so he leaves behind his wife and 4 kids. And he was 37, but I don't think anybody plans for that. Wouldn't it be awesome if you had charity set aside that maybe you're not giving into an organization, but maybe you can bless that family? Because you know that most people are not planning for that with insurance, with anything else. I know our family isn't planning for that. And so wouldn't that be awesome if you could bless that family with needed money, so it maybe just relieves his wife's stress a little bit about money so she can just worry about her 4 kids. So that was, it kind of shook him out of his charities are bad. And so the only reason I share that story is so you can rephrase it. It doesn't have to be money that you're giving to an organization, you're giving to a church, but it is money that you can spend on something that's making a positive impact. And remember back to the wolves of Yellowstone and how they reshape the rivers. So when we make these positive impacts, we don't know what impact they actually have because they might have lasting impact. And so with all that stuff that you just wrote down, you can start kind of designing your own profit first, your own intentional wealth plan. So again, I show you the allocations up there. And there's this quote that I really like and says, "Don't tell me where your priorities are. Show me where you spend your money and I'll tell you what they are," by James Frick. And I really like that quote. And often we just get overwhelmed. There's so much like Amazon Prime, 2-hour delivery. We're just overwhelmed and we can get things on a moment's notice. And that's totally fine. I love those conveniences, but it's great to have an allocated amount of money that we know, hey, I want to spend this amount of money on frivolous stuff, but I also want to spend this amount of money on just huge positive impact stuff or investments or whatever. So you're being more proactive instead of just being reactive to the scrolling. In essence, the new infomercial, you're scrolling Facebook and the weird electronic neti pot that you're like, man, I've had a stuffed up sinus infection for forever. I'm going to get that weird water pumping neti pot. I know I'm speaking from personal experience. I did purchase some weird neti pot electric thing. It actually seems to work really well. But and another thing that I really want to share here is when we are super proactive in what we're spending and why we're spending it, and we put it on autopilot, it's going to lower your stress. And I want to just give a real quick example. When I started, I was never a great giver, never a great giver. It's definitely a muscle that's built. And so this epiphany happened when I was at church, and all of a sudden I put my giving on, I put our giving on autopilot. So I just said, hey, I'm going to put this amount and it's going to happen every week. And it was a set it and forget it. And it was great. I mean, not that you want to be thoughtless with it, but I already had thought of this is how much I want to give. And so now I know and it's not like I have to physically take money out of my pocket and put it somewhere. It's just going there because I'm being very mindful of that choice. And so this happens often too in like vacations where I've talked to my parents who will purchase something or go on an expensive vacation. My dad will be super stressed, and maybe you can relate to this because it's a $10,000 vacation. But if they have $20,000 a month coming in, they've already allocated that money to vacations. It's much easier when you earmark your funds for something instead of having to pull it out of a general fund and go, wow, this is a really expensive vacation. So I hope that resonates, that when you earmark things, it just makes them less stressful because you're like, hey, I already planned for this and this is what that money was going to. And then the last, again, if you put the most amount to investing, you're going to grow. It allows you to have sustainable growth. So if you live off of 50% of your income, you're going to have sustainable growth for income, and you're going to grow how much you give, which is awesome if you're using a percentage. So I love my design that way, and I encourage you to take it as well. Again, we're getting close to the end. I wanted to just retouch again of that positive impact. We don't know if you've heard of the butterfly effect. And the slides is be the butterfly. You've heard the butterfly effect or chaos theory, is that a butterfly, the flapping of a butterfly's wings on the other side of the world can create a tornado. And so I just say, when we're being very intentional, you don't know what positive effect you're going to have. It could be huge. Or if it's just the positive effect that our kids are watching what we do and they're seeing how intentional we are being with our wealth. And that just transfers on to the next generation and the next generation to come. So those little small changes that we make of budgeting can make huge impacts. And so let's wrap up this presentation. And I appreciate everybody for being here. I appreciate you guys for sticking with me. So number one is teamwork and communication. So making sure you're on the same page with your spouse, with your kids, and talking about it. And your vision's going to change. So your allocations might change as you go on. And so maybe it's a good annual revisiting. Hey, this is where we're spending. Are we good? And just asking the right questions and getting detailed. So not the, hey, do you have a spending budget, and leaving it at that. Getting very detailed on what that spending budget is. How much income do you need? So that's number two, the clear values and goals. You're coming together as a team. You're creating hey, this is what we value most. We really want to spend time because we don't have that much time with our kids. So we want to go on vacations now. We know they're going to be out of the house. And so what are our goals? What are our values? And then determining categories and allocation percentages. So we talked about that. You can create those off of the value, the goals, the values, and your charities. And then tracking your spending using that profit first model to track your spending. And I have a spreadsheet down there at the bottom of this slide, my media company's website. And there's a actual Excel form that I use to track our profit first. And so I upload it up there. You can download it there for free. And you can start tracking your own intentional wealth. And then just remembering again your why, that positive impact that you make, your kids passing along financial literacy to your kids and being intentional with their wealth and not just being reactive, but seeing mom and dad be proactive. Super important to always bring that to the front of your mind, your why. And with that, that's the end of the presentation. If you guys have any questions, you can scan that QR2 code. I do have, I have my emails up there, my phone numbers up there. I do have a YouTube channel where I teach people for free how to invest. It's mostly around our properties that we've invested in Baltimore with a high level of transparency. So what our returns look like, how we did it. So if you're ever interested in investing in real estate, or if you just want to reach out to me, just reach out to me via text message or email, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you guys so much for listening to that presentation today. And I wish you the best on your intentional wealth journey. Thank you.